This story is titled, Dance with Him All You Want. But next time, I won't be there. My name's Ellis. I'm not the kind of guy people notice right away, or even after a second glance. Honestly, I'm more of a background character, always have been. Beige car. Brown shoes. A job that's all spreadsheets and awkward conversations over cold lunch meat in the break room. People call me safe. Like that's supposed to be a good thing. But here's the thing nobody tells you. Being safe doesn't keep you from falling apart. Everything shifted last Friday night at the Civic Center downtown. That rundown building with faded red curtains and an event schedule packed with retirement parties and Zumba fundraisers. Laurel, my wife, had spent weeks planning some big local arts gala there. She was on the committee, and she'd been buzzing nonstop. She picked out a dress, rehearsed speeches, and shot off emails well past midnight, filled with exclamation points like confetti. I thought it was cute. I figured she was just excited. Looking back now, I think it was something else. Something I didn't see coming. I parked in the back lot because the front was already full. I'd run late, tie crooked, shoes dusty, nothing unusual. I grabbed a tiny bouquet I'd picked up at a gas station. Yeah, I know, not exactly romantic, but I was trying. Then I walked up to the back entrance of the building. And then I froze. There was this little square window next to the emergency door. It wasn't supposed to give a full view of the ballroom, but somehow it did. Just enough to see too much. And what I saw made my stomach drop like I'd hit a patch of black ice. Laurel, my wife, in that deep green dress with the low back, the one she swore she didn't buy for anyone in particular. She was twirling in the arms of a man I'd never seen before. And they weren't just dancing, they moved together like water. She tipped her head back and laughed. That laugh used to be mine. The one I'd get when I read bad Yelp reviews out loud in a fake British accent. But this one? That laugh belonged to him. He was tall, sure of himself, wearing one of those snug blazers that only work on guys who know people watch them walk by. And the way he held her, like it wasn't their first time. Like this had happened before. I didn't storm in. Didn't shout. I did what I always do. I stood there and froze. Watched them float across the floor while my feet stayed planted on that dirty back step. When I finally managed to walk inside, she was back at our table, sipping wine, cheeks flushed. She looked surprised when she saw me, but only for a second. Then she smiled like everything was perfectly normal. You made it, she said. Like I hadn't just watched her melt into someone else's arms. I didn't bring it up. Not right away. I sat through the speeches. Clapped when I was supposed to. Even chuckled when some guy cracked a joke about marriage being a two-person circus with one person always cleaning up the elephant. But I didn't forget. Later, when the band started playing again, and that same man walked toward her, I beat him to it. Met her halfway across the floor. Didn't yell. Didn't cause a scene. I leaned in close, just enough for her to hear, and I said, if you go out there and dance with him again, we'll be having a very different kind of conversation. She didn't laugh this time. Didn't smile. Didn't say a word. And that silence? It spoke louder than any confession ever could. When I said those words, she didn't even blink. Just looked at me like I was making a big deal out of nothing. Like I'd interrupted her placing a lunch order. That look calm, detached, it hurt worse than if she'd screamed. Because it told me she'd already run the math in her head. And she still hadn't decided which one of us mattered more. The music played on, some cheerful jazz number. The kind of song guys like me pretend to like to seem cultured. But I couldn't hear it anymore. All I could hear was the roaring silence between us. Laurel turned back toward the table like I'd asked her whether she wanted sparkling or still water. I followed behind, everything around us looking normal. Too normal. Nobody noticed. Nobody saw what I saw. And maybe they wouldn't have cared even if they had. Back at the table, I tried to play it cool. I asked who that tall guy was. She shrugged like it was nothing. His name's Cameron. He's on the museum board. We met during auction prep. Then she added, he's funny. That was it. No mention of how close they danced. No acknowledgement of the way she kept touching her necklace when she talked to him. All those little signs I used to overlook were now blaring in my face like warning alarms. I wanted to ask more, but I didn't want to come off as jealous. Or worse, desperate. Yeah, I know. Pathetic. But sometimes you cling to the illusion a little longer, just to delay the crash that comes after. The rest of the night dragged on like molasses. People laughed, glasses clinked, and I sat there nodding at conversations I didn't hear a word of. Laurel kept checking her phone under the table. Once, I caught her smiling at the screen. I leaned over just enough to catch the preview. One word, Cam. I didn't say anything. Not there. Not in front of everyone. I just smiled, stood up, and told her I'd meet her at the car. As I walked out, I passed Cameron at the bar. He didn't pretend, just gave me a nod, like we were two men who both knew how the story ended. I sat in the car for 22 minutes before she came out. Yeah, I counted. 22. When she finally got in, she looked flushed, breathless, like she'd just finished dancing. I asked, "You good?" She smiled, touched my arm, and said, "I needed tonight. Thanks for coming." And just like that, something inside me cracked. She fell asleep easily that night, right beside me, breathing slow and soft like the world hadn't shifted. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if the woman I married had already left me months ago and just hadn't said the words out loud yet. I thought about the way she looked at him, that warm expression she used to save just for me. And I kept hearing her say that word funny. What the hell was so funny? The next morning, I opened her laptop. Yeah, I know, privacy and all that. But at that point, I wasn't pretending anymore. I needed answers. What I found wasn't anything steamy, nothing romantic. It was worse. Email threads, dozens of them, about the event, but also notes. Personal notes. About me. One line in particular hit me like a punch to the gut. "He's sweet, but he wouldn't notice if I walked out the door for a week." I didn't recognize the address she sent it to, but it wasn't a girlfriend. It wasn't a cousin. It was him. Cameron. So no, maybe she hadn't technically cheated. Not yet. But in every way that mattered, I was already gone. Sunday came like a fog rolling in. Laurel was up early, bright and cheerful, humming as she fried eggs in the kitchen. She moved like someone living in a completely different version of our life. I stood in the hallway for a while, just watching her, wondering how someone could send messages like that at night and whistle over bacon in the morning. I wanted to confront her, really ask her. Instead, I just said, "Thanks for making breakfast." She replied without even looking back. "You're welcome, sweetie." Her voice made me feel like a guest in my own marriage. Later, while she was out running errands, I opened her closet, not to snoop, just to remember who she used to be. Her green dress from the gala was shoved in the back, still holding traces of her perfume. And something else. Something sharper. Curious, I checked the pocket of her coat. That's when I found it, a folded cocktail napkin with a phone number scribbled neatly across it. The name on it wasn't Cameron. It was a woman. Marla. No last name. Just, "Let me know when it's safe to talk." Safe? That word threw me into a tailspin. Who was Marla? Why would it need to be safe to talk to her? That night, I didn't sleep again. My stomach churned. I started replaying everything: the yoga retreat in Mexico, the sudden obsession with self-help books, the women-only workshops. It all started feeling staged. Too perfect. Monday morning, I called in sick. Told them I had a migraine. Truth was, I just needed space to think. I found the guest list for the gala. Laurel had left the program lying on the table. I scanned it, and there she was. Marla Kennedy, donor coordinator. So she wasn't just some mystery woman, she'd been involved with the event. I searched her name and found her on LinkedIn. She worked in nonprofit fundraising. Close ties to the board. Which meant Cameron. Which meant Laurel. My head was spinning. Around lunchtime, I got a text from Laurel's work number, which she never uses for casual stuff. "If you're not feeling well, don't overthink things. You've been tired. We'll talk when I'm home." That didn't feel like love. That felt like damage control. But I didn't wait. I sent Marla a message on Facebook. I kept it short. "Hi Marla. I believe you met my wife Laurel through the arts gala. I found your name and number. I'm not accusing anyone, but if there's something I should know, I'm listening." Didn't expect a reply, but I got one that same night. 3 lines. "Ellis, I've been waiting for this. Meet me tomorrow morning. I'll explain everything. Alone. No emojis. No extra details. Just an address near a rundown office park." The words, "I've been waiting," hit me like a sledgehammer. I didn't know what I was about to hear, but I knew it wasn't just about dancing. I didn't tell Laurel. Didn't mention a thing. That night, we ate dinner, grilled chicken and quinoa, because she was suddenly into clean eating. She talked fast, too fast, about some new museum exhibit. Like she was trying to drown out my silence. And I let her. Because I didn't want to argue anymore. I just wanted the truth. Plain. Honest. No sugarcoat. The next morning, I showed up 15 minutes early to the address Marla gave me. It was a plain building with cracked pavement and a coffee shop in the corner with a flickering open sign. She was already inside, sitting in the back, wearing a blazer over a t-shirt that read, "Ask better questions." I couldn't tell if that was meant to be a joke or a warning. When I sat down, she didn't say hello, didn't offer coffee. She just looked at me, eyes tired, and said, "You really don't know, do you?" I didn't answer. Just stared at her, throat dry. And then she dropped it. Laurel and Cameron have been involved since January. It started at the retreat. They got paired up during some vision board activity, and, well, I guess things snowballed from there. I blinked. Involved felt like such a gentle word for the chaos hammering through my skull. They're not just having some affair, she added. They're making plans. She's been meeting with legal folks about splitting up the assets. She'd already shifted money into a separate account, tucked neatly under a trust in her sister's name. I couldn't breathe. It felt like the room had been vacuum sealed, the air sucked right out of it. "Why are you telling me all this?" I finally asked. Marla leaned back, arms folded across her chest. "Because she used me to get to Cameron. I thought I was helping her build a better future," she said. "Turns out, she was just wiping someone else out of hers. You didn't deserve any of this." I sat there for a while, letting her words seep into the cracks of my denial. Little pieces started fitting together. Laurel's sudden obsession with independence, the new credit card I never laid eyes on, the phony receipts for home office upgrades. She wasn't laying the groundwork for freedom, she was setting the stage for an escape. Then Marla slid a folder across the table. Inside were printed emails and photos. One of them showed Laurel and Cameron walking side by side on the beach, timestamped just 3 weeks after she supposedly came back from Mexico. She hadn't gone alone. That retreat had been a lie. By the time I stepped out of that coffee shop, it felt like someone had cracked open my rib cage and poured ice water straight onto my heart. Strangely, I didn't feel angry. I just felt hollow, like my whole identity had been scraped down to nothing. I didn't confront her that night. I couldn't. She was in bed watching some nature show, laughing at a goat slipping off a rock. I stood there, watching her, wondering how someone could live a double life and still laugh like that. Then she looked over at me and asked, "Everything okay?" I nodded. "Yeah, just tired." She reached out and held my hand, the same hand she must have held hours after kissing another man. And I let her. Not because I still believed in her, but because I needed one more night to mourn the version of her I used to think was real. I didn't go to work the next day. Didn't shave. Didn't move much at all. I just sat there at the kitchen table, staring at the folder Marla had given me, like opening it again would somehow confirm that the last 7 years had been one long, elaborate betrayal. Laurel kissed me on the forehead before she left, told me to rest, maybe drink some tea, and floated out the door with that same carefree energy she used to have back when we were dating. I waited until I was sure she was gone. Then I opened the folder again, only this time, I really looked. There was a timeline, messages sent through Telegram and Signal, apps she'd never installed on her main phone. There were travel plans that didn't match up with the stories she told me about yoga retreats and museum board events. But it was one email that turned my stomach. Cameron to Laurel, dated 2 months ago. "He won't see it coming. He's too soft. By the time he figures it out, we'll be 6 steps ahead. Just keep playing sweet." He said it twice. He won't see it coming. This wasn't just an affair. They were laughing behind my back for trusting her. They weren't afraid of getting caught. They were counting on me never catching on. Because I was the quiet one. The easygoing guy. The one who forgave too fast, who folded during fights, who said, "It's okay," way more than he ever should have. And now they were using that against me. I walked into our bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. Her perfume still hung in the air. Her pillow still held the shape of her head. I looked at our wedding photo on the dresser, both of us smiling, eyes locked, her hand gripping mine like she'd never let go. But she had. She'd let go a long time ago. That evening, I cooked dinner. First time in weeks. She looked genuinely surprised when she walked in and saw the table set. I told her I just wanted a quiet night in. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and said, "That's so thoughtful. I love this side of you." This side of me? Which side was that, the naive fool or the guy holding himself together with threadbare dignity? We ate. We chatted. And the whole time, all I could think about was that line. Just keep playing sweet. I watched her closely, how she leaned in when she laughed, how she kept glancing at her phone under her napkin, how she said "I love you" like she was punching a time card. I didn't sleep that night. My mind wouldn't stop racing, turning everything over again and again until nearly 3 a.m. Finally, I got up and opened the drawer in her home office. And there it was, her second phone, buried under a stack of tax documents, exactly where Marla said it would be. It wasn't even locked. Messages, dozens of them. One in particular made my chest cave in on itself. "Laurel, Do you think he suspects anything yet? Cameron. He's been quiet. That usually means no. She thought silence meant I was clueless. She didn't realize it could also mean I was watching, documenting, waiting. And the hardest part? It wasn't anger that came over me. It was relief. Because finally, everything made sense. No more guessing. No more hanging onto the version of her I built in my head to protect myself. This was who she really was. And now, I had choices. Not about revenge. I didn't want to get even. I didn't want to hurt her. I didn't even care about confronting Cameron. I just wanted out. Quietly. No explosions. No scenes. Just like how she was trying to leave me, only I'd go first. The next morning was picture perfect. Clear skies, birds chirping, the sound of a lawnmower somewhere down the block. Laurel hummed as she made coffee, some tune from the Gala playlist. The same song I'd seen her swaying to in Cameron's arms. That image, her gazing up at him like he was some kind of gift from the universe, was burned into my mind like a watermark I couldn't erase. I watched her across the kitchen island and thought, she's already gone. Her body might be here, but her mind was living in a future that didn't have me in it. And now that I had the proof, messages, meetings, hidden accounts, the second phone, I could finally stop pretending. I didn't yell, didn't throw anything. I just waited. Waited until she left for her yoga class, the one that was supposed to realign her feminine energy or whatever. I watched her drive off like I had 100 times before. Only this time, I wasn't wondering if she was lying about where she was going. I already knew Dot. I already knew where she was. She wasn't at yoga, she wasn't at the store, she was with him. But instead of tailing her or confronting anything, I did something else entirely. I sat down with a notebook and started writing. Not some big emotional outburst or a rundown of everything she'd done wrong, just a single page. It was quiet, controlled, steady. I told her the truth, I knew. I'd seen the messages, gone through the emails, and even talked to Marla. I wrote that I wasn't going to fight for someone who'd already checked out of our marriage months ago. I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't yell. And I wouldn't be there when she got back. I folded the letter and tucked it under her pillow. Then I grabbed my laptop and moved what little personal savings I had left into a separate account, one she couldn't touch. It wasn't a fortune, but it would carry me. I called my brother in Oregon and told him I was coming to visit. For how long? He asked. I didn't answer. I think he picked up on what I meant. I left the rest behind, the keys, my toothbrush, even that wedding photo in the hallway I used to be proud to look at. All I took was a small overnight bag and the folder Marla had handed me. Not because I needed proof anymore, but because it grounded me. It reminded me I wasn't losing my mind. That it all really happened. Right before I locked the door for the last time, I stood for a moment in the entryway where we used to hang our coats, and her laughter. I whispered to no one in particular, she made her choice. And now I was making mine. By the time Laurel walked through that door later that evening, the house was still. No dinner on the stove. No sign of me in the living room. Just a cold cup of coffee on the counter, and a quiet space where I used to stand. I imagined she walked into the bedroom, found a letter, and sat down on the edge of the bed, maybe reading it again and again, hoping it would change into something else. But it wouldn't, because I wasn't coming back. She'd been crafting her exit for months, keeping it quiet. All I did was notice the door she'd left halfway open, and I closed it. I didn't expect her to react right away. I figured maybe I'd get a short, distant text a day or two later. Something like, "Where are you?" Or maybe nothing at all. Maybe she'd just pour herself a glass of wine with Cameron and call it a clean break. But it didn't go that way. It started with 1 missed call, then 3, then 10. By the end of that first day, I had 17 missed calls, 5 voicemails, and 1 long text that simply read, "Ellis, please, don't do this. Let's talk. It's not what you think." But of course, it was exactly what I thought. Maybe even worse. And she knew it. By then, I was already halfway through Nevada, driving my brother's old Ford pickup. He'd handed me the keys without a single question. "You good?" he asked. "Not yet," I told him. He just nodded like he understood. There was something calming about that kind of silence, the kind that doesn't need filling. It was the opposite of the noise I'd been living in for 2 years. Later, I parked at some gas station near a dusty canyon and finally played one of her voicemails. Laurel's voice was shaky, almost like someone else's. "Ellis, please," she said. "I don't know what you heard or who told you what, but I swear I didn't mean to hurt you. I was confused. It's more complicated than you think. More complicated. Like she just misplaced her wallet, not rebuild our whole life behind my back." And that line, "Who told you?" That said everything. She wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry she got caught. That evening, I pulled into a cheap little motel just outside of Bend, Oregon. Nothing glamorous, stiff carpet, loud ice machine. But it was mine. It was my space. For the first time in what felt like forever, I fell asleep without listening for her voice, her footsteps, or her lies creeping in under the door. The next morning, an email from the bank popped up. Laurel had tried to access one of our joint investment accounts. She triggered a security flag by attempting to move more than the allowed limit. But I was already ahead of her. I'd quietly removed myself from that account on my lawyer's advice. Her name was still there, but she didn't have the control she thought she did. That was probably the moment it hit her. I wasn't bluffing. By noon, she called again. Then Cameron did. Yeah, he actually had the nerve to call me. Blocked number. I almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me. I didn't say anything, just listened. His voice was smooth. Hey, man, he said. I don't know what Laurel told you, but this whole thing, it wasn't supposed to go down like that. She's really torn up. You should talk to her before this gets all legal. You're both decent people. You can work it out. Work it out. That's when I understood something I hadn't before. Cameron wasn't in love with Laurel. He was in love with getting away with it. That polished voice, that easy confidence, he'd done this before. He was used to people folding. Used to fixing things with charm and lies that sounded like truth. I hung up without saying a word. I didn't know him, or anyone closure. Not when no one had given me honesty. That night, I took a walk by the river. The air was cold, my breath rising in soft puffs. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was trapped in some kind of performance. I wasn't waiting to be seen or pretending I was okay. I just was. And somehow, that was enough. Because sometimes survival isn't about torching the bridge, it's about realizing it was already burnt to ash, and you were the last one standing on it. Weeks passed. Then a month. I stopped counting. Laurel's name faded from my screen. Her text drifted into my junk folder like echoes from a life I'd already walked away from. Cameron never called again. Maybe he finally figured out I wasn't the kind of man who chased after what was already broken. Or maybe Laurel told him I wasn't coming back. And she was right. I ended up staying in Oregon longer than I planned. My brother helped me get settled in a modest place just on the edge of town. It wasn't perfect, got chilly at night, the porch creaked, but it was peaceful. Some mornings the fog sat low over the grass like something out of a painting. I started waking up early. I stopped refreshing old threads. And I began to remember what real silence sounded like, the kind that isn't filled with second-guessing. Eventually, I joined a small local book group. Just a few folks meeting on Wednesdays, drinking bad coffee and arguing about symbolism in dusty novels. At first, I barely said a word. Just listened. Took it all in. But being around people who didn't know my story, who didn't look at me like I was broken, it started to patch something I didn't even realize was still torn. And then came Nora. She wasn't loud. Didn't try to stand out. She just sat next to me one evening and asked what I thought about the book. I said something clumsy, probably didn't make much sense, but she smiled anyway. Not the kind of smile you wear for attention. It was genuine. Over time, we talked more. About stories, about work, about what it's like to rebuild your life in your 30s like you're assembling something from a box with no manual. She never pushed. Never asked about my past. She just let me be. And I showed up. One night, after everyone else left, we sat out on the library steps. The breeze was soft, the air warm. She looked at me and said, "You listen like you're still figuring out if the world's worth trusting again." I laughed, not out of bitterness, but out of honesty. I used to give it away too easily, I told her. She nodded. And now, she asked. I paused. Now, I give it to people who don't ask for it. They just earn it. That night, I didn't look back. Not at the past. Not at Laurel's unanswered emails still sitting in my inbox. Not at the version of the future I once thought we'd share. I looked ahead, towards something new. I wasn't all better. Not completely. But I was healing. And sometimes, that's enough to begin again.